Hey everybody, welcome to the Geek Reloading podcast. I'm your host Adam, and as always, my co-host Josh.
Hello.
And Josh, this episode,
This is a good
I came
one.
up. I came up with it because we've this is like a new, not necessarily a new thing, but this is something that is like evolving like right now.
Yeah, and it's kind of a new thing, and I think this is the way most stuff is going to go towards. So what we're going to be talking about today is subscriptions and what we think about the whole concept of game subscriptions and what space it has and what it has in the past.
Yeah, because I mean, with like PlayStation recently announcing that they're shuttering PlayStation 3 networks, games, and PlayStation Vita storefront, and things like that are available digitally and whatnot, and you're starting to see that Xbox and PlayStation are both starting to transition into a new form of what they're going to do when it comes to cloud storage, cloud gaming, and kind of offering things in these subscription spaces, you know. But before we get into like the current stuff, let's just do a quick like historical primer of kind of like a quick overview timeline of how subscriptions kind of came about when it comes to the main three: Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo. Right? That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah. And
okay.
I mean, simple. Xbox started out with Live Gold, right?
Yeah, and that was specifically the subscription was only for being able to play online play, like multiplayer. It was very, very early on, way before they had extra like DLC editions or additional incentives. It was mostly just so you could play online with your Xbox. And the big game that really pushed this primarily was Halo 2. That was the big one that called this out and kind of made this an actual thing for Xbox and actually started generating to see if it was actually viable to do at all.
Yeah, because before you'd kind of have to connect through some kind of janky-ass ways with Halo, the original.
Yeah.
And it was mostly just LAN party. I don't remember a lot of online stuff, but then they were like, Halo 2, you can play with people across the country.
Yeah.
And that was pretty cool.
I mean, it's something that it wasn't completely foreign at the time. At least if you were a PC player, you were able to play online all the time. But when it came to console systems, it was something that even in the most robust ways that had been done previously, it had just never been done well. Dreamcast had an online functionality, and so did even like Sega Saturn and Sega 32X, I think. But I mean, it just wasn't done really well, and it wasn't something that was really viable. There wasn't a huge library, and there wasn't a huge like game that drew people to actually go, I want to play online.
I'll say this, I would say Sega Dreamcast really was really good, and it worked really well. It was actually, I would say it was more stable than early Xbox. The problem was it was the Dreamcast. No one had it, so
yeah,
that was the problem.
Yeah. So let's just do a quick fast forward. Then suddenly we go to PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, when you saw a division between if online gameplay required a subscription or not. And PlayStation 3, for the first good chunk of its life cycle, multiplayer was free on there, whereas 360, it was still required. You had to pay for Xbox Live Gold, and that was the way you were going to play online.
Yes, and have the connection through the internet, you know, through their servers and everything. Xbox was like, you know, you need to put some money in. And I will say this, the fact that they required money did show in how the servers ran. Like, you connected to other people game, like on Xbox, so much better. And you know, that now moves into this whole concept of multiplayer is more Xbox rather than PlayStation.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who owned both and was able to experience both, even at the free level and at the paid level and whatnot, PlayStation 3's online was cumbersome, to say the least. It was difficult to get it set in, and what sucked is that it when it worked pretty well, but it was hard getting it to work.
Yeah, and there was also some issues with continuity. Like, you get games dropped a lot more frequently, and it made sense because you go to Xbox and say, hey, I paid for this service, why is it garbage? They'd have to address that. PlayStation, we're doing this for free, we're paying to keep these servers up, and you're not paying us anything. So
And
be grateful.
I think another reason why they did it for free for so long was because also PlayStation 3 had such a high price entry to be able to even play it all, because when it first came out it was originally $600, and so like I think that they knew that they weren't going to be able to milk any more out of the console gamer that was still like loyal to PlayStation. I think that's something that it definitely showed, but eventually you did have PlayStation starting to hint towards that they were going to have a subscription base, and that was when PlayStation Plus was birthed. That's when everything started going that way. And I'll tell you, when it comes to the Xbox 360 and PlayStation Plus, one thing that I did notice, outside of even Games with Gold and all those things, for some reason between PlayStation 3 and 360, the discounts on the PlayStation 3 store compared to the Xbox store were always better on the PlayStation 3, almost consistently, to the point where it was almost insulting when there would be like third-party games that would be on sale on both of them, and you'd see like $10 off or $15 off or even more on the PS3, and it would be like $3 off on the Xbox, which is still kind of true today. I'll call that out. But obviously, with the emergence of like subscriptions and online play, you also had the big hack on PS3 in 2011, and they had to make a whole bunch of good faith towards different, all the online subscribers and everything after that too. So then we move into kind of like where we're used to, where we talk about Xbox 360, PS3, PS4, Xbox One, and that introduces Games with Gold and PlayStation Plus monthly games.
And I think this is where that concept of of subscription, like having to pay for a subscription every month, or if you could get a year set up, that was great. But I mean, at this point, it was like, okay, like we play online just because we play online. That's how it is. However, like nowadays, it's just kind of like you also get a game. So it kind of took the edge off of that. Like, hey, you're buying 2 games or 4 games or however it was at that time, and you're paying for the games, and it was kind of finally like took that sting off of, hey, it's just so I can play my game, I have to pay.
Yeah, and I'll agree with you on that, because there was a couple things I liked about each one. The 360 finally introduces some sort of bonus for paying for this subscription, because when it was just, you can access online multiplayer, for a lot of people, it didn't feel worth it, especially for people like me, where I play a lot of single player games. It was like, for the once in a blue moon, when I play with my buddy who lived in Boston at the time, or I played with Josh or whatever, it was great to have it, but it also felt like a waste most of the time because I wasn't getting anything out of it from Xbox. So when they introduced Games with Gold, it was nice to notice, okay, and every single month, I'm going to have a couple games that I wouldn't necessarily would have picked up myself, but free is free, and I'll try anything, at least for a couple hours.
Well, and I will say with this also, I think it also kind of helped us to go, you know what, I'm going to wait on games. Because I know for me, like, I stopped buying games, like as many games, like when they're coming out and all that, just because I was like, this will probably go on sale or, be free in a year. And I got enough stuff to play now. So I think that kind of started that whole concept of, you know what, I don't need to buy it right now.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with you. I mean, I was always one to not early adopt unless you completely had to, like a multiplayer game where the community base is time-based, But I liked that they finally introduced here games every single month. And for a while it was dope, because on PlayStation 4 with PlayStation Plus, you'd get a PlayStation 4 game or two, you'd get a couple PlayStation 3 games, and you'd get even Vita games that were included all in one month. So you'd get like 4 to 6 games per month, and I added a ton of games to my library just by doing that. One thing I did notice when the Xbox 360 started doing Games with Gold at the beginning, their first initial options were kind of shit for a while, and they realized that nobody was digging these half-assed title selections that they were picking, and they were noticing that PlayStation was consistently blowing them out of the water, and so that kind of created a healthy competition that made it so then each month, each subscription was getting a decent game here and there.
Yeah, and it seemed like every month or every other month, there was a decent game. Not brand new, but it was a decent game. There was a lot of shovelware titles that were coming out at that time, and Xbox was
true.
fucking terrible about that. Is they would be like, "Hey, we've got this new game, you know, and it's free," and it was shit. Like I remember playing a lot of those shit games just because it was like, okay, this is what they're offering. This is garbage.
Yeah, and it sucks because it took a while for both of them to go, okay, here's a good rhythm. A couple games that might be like either indie level or just shit, and then a couple like you gotta have something each month for people to look forward to, because if you have a few months in a row, it's like, why am I paying for this? It's once again taking it back to is it just for multiplayer? Is it honestly worth it?
Yeah, and then there's all those questions of, well, why should I play for multiplayer if I play on PC or, you know, anything else like that? Like, there are other ways I can play with friends across country.
Yeah, and here's the other thing though. This is still it still is consistent to this day. PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Store still have better deals on games overall than Xbox Store and Xbox Games with Gold or Game Pass Ultimate. And it pisses me off because it's the same fucking game across each one. But if I can save $5 to literally $20 on a game when they go on their sales on each store, it's a bit ridiculous. Xbox, you got to bring up your game a little bit on that.
No. Like, let's be honest about this. Like, the reason why that is Xbox has put the focus on better, solid, like, multiplayer and stuff.
That doesn't matter when it's a single player game, and if both of them have it a sale for $7 or $27.
I mean, if you have, you know, both companies getting $10 from you every month saying this is for a free game and for a a good setup for your multiplayer online, like, you can see where that money is going. Like, PlayStation is like, we'll give you deals, and Xbox is, we'll give you infrastructure. So
here's the thing: the infrastructure between PS4 and Xbox One is negligible. It's not a huge difference anymore. That was true in PS3 and 360.
But also, like, Xbox has definitely stepped up their game on the games they offer and stuff.
Yeah, but so is PlayStation. So that argument is still not valid in this current generation. I shouldn't even say current. We don't have the current generation.
We don't have the current generation.
Okay.
Because we're grumpy old men.
It's true. Speaking of current generation, though, now you have the newest evolution, which is Xbox Game Pass, which is still technically separate from Xbox Live Gold, but there's a master subscription, the Ultimate, which is Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which includes Xbox Live Gold, and then you have PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now, and PlayStation Now and Xbox Game Pass are both subscription-based game offerings that give you a certain amount of games per month. It's like Netflix and stuff where you can play a game, eventually sometimes titles roll off, but it usually has at least 100 titles on each one. I think that Xbox Game Pass is like 120, 130, and then PlayStation Now has about the same. So I've messed with both of these, and this is where, like, I go back and forth between every single console or whatever, but Xbox Game Pass is an amazing deal for everything you get out of it on Game Pass Ultimate, because you get your Xbox Live, you get your all these games that are accessible. You have games that are releasing on Game Pass the same time they're releasing in physical form on a release date, the initial launch date.
Yeah.
And you're getting Project X Cloud, where you can play from any mobile device that's Android based and or your computer. And with Game Pass Ultimate, you have PC games that you can get as well. This is the best damn deal out there right now, and it is impressive, even if it is $15 a month.
Absolutely. I don't know. We'll get into my thoughts on this a little bit after this. But I don't know. I think the game industry needs to change a lot, and I think the subscription stuff is actually a good thing for them, because you can get a base level of what you need to do, and there's a good enough reason to buy into this.
Yeah.
So but again, like, I'm still from the old school of when I buy something, I own that. That's mine now.
Yeah.
And subscription, you don't get that feeling. You don't get that.
No, and that's the thing that is weird about digital, and there's a lot of conversations about that right now, where it's like with the, don't mind me, there's an airplane fucking crossing my house. Anyway.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a rarity. Where I used to live, it happened a whole lot more because we were over by the airport, but not anymore. And I'm cool with that. I'll take the random one here and there over like every single night at like clockwork time any day. So I'm okay with it. We'll let it roll. Anyway, here's the thing. Josh, you and me both like having a physical. I own it. This is my copy and everything, and I love that feeling. And I think that especially a lot of people who are worried about gaming history and keeping older games available for other people to play, it's a very hot topic in the piracy and modding circles. Like, what happens when they turn off servers? Like they're turning off PlayStation 3 store servers and Vita servers. The games that you have on your system are the games that you have on your system. Eventually, that's all you've got. All the money or whatever you put towards that, because Xbox is going to do it with 360 as well.
Oh yeah.
And everything. When that happens, the money you put in there, it's gone, or it's on a console that has a limited shelf life with a hard drive. And so a big question for a lot of people is like, as they move into this subscription base, which is a really good value, what are you going to do to keep the older titles, keep all those things available, or give us access to those things? Because that's going to be a hard evolution, I think, for the industry.
Well, and that's one of the big things. That's kind of why I think I've been moving away from like console gaming a lot, and maybe moving away from Xbox and PlayStation in general, because Nintendo doesn't work that way still. And you know, a PC like Steam library is your Steam library. You bought it, you got it. Like, that's it.
But it's not that way, though. If Steam ever chooses to no longer support a title because either for publishing rights issues or because the publisher removes it or whatever, that game's still gone. Like, it's still a gone thing.
You have bought that game, and you can just go through. You can download that game, because I've had a couple games. I can even download some of the betas that I bought early access to. Whether, like, even though those games are not supported anymore, they still have the beta, like, because I own that game, quote unquote, even though they've replaced it with the actual game. Like, but I own that game. I can download that game from there. They don't support it
as long as they're on the server, as long as there's a place to download from. That's what people are concerned about, is as soon as they go, this isn't a viable use of our storage or our time or our money, they will remove it from a server or wherever you're downloading it from, unless you have it somewhere else.
But I mean, even then, like, you can download that game and you can have it. Like, but again, like, what we're talking about is with the subscriptions is that's not going to be the case anymore. And
yeah,
and it very much is directing you. You have to play these rules by their rules now. Like, if you want to be a part of this, and honestly, that's why I think the consoles are kind of going out of favor.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, the cool things about the subscription passes is, first off, I haven't bought a new game for Xbox in over a year. I haven't physically bought a game going, I'm going to buy this, because every single time I want to buy a new game that's coming out, it shows up on Game Pass. And I'm like,
even if it's a month or two later, like, that's fine. That's not a big wait.
Like I said, they're even having some that are like same day it launches in Best Buy as a physical copy, it's going to be on Game Pass. It's obviously, Microsoft based, very, but that's still damn impressive. So that's something that's really cool about it. And then also the fact that it opens up another robust area to play, which is your PC. But like the fact that it kind of, sure, I'm paying $15 a month if I pay full price. I didn't pay that. Like, I signed up with the convert for $1, and I had 3 years worth of subscription to convert. So mine came out to like $3 per month, which was even less than my original Xbox Live Gold for all this conversion. And it was insane because I got it on like some deals or whatever. So, I mean, I'm paying $3 a month to get a bunch of games included on Games with Gold that I get to keep, plus Xbox Game Pass. But you're right. You're being kind of corralled into you play these games for as long as you want to play, as long as we have them available, and then they're going to be removed.
And another thing with this is it works for very, very specific people. It works really, really well. For me, like, I never got Game Pass just because I'm not going to play 99% of those games. And so it's like I might not even play that 1% of the games. So it's like it's not worth it to me. You, on the other hand, you have 3 gamers in your house. Like 3 people game on this. And so that will get used. I've got another friend that he's got a family of 5 kids and him and his wife, and there's a lot of game playing going on there, and it's constant. So it's, you know, that is the best deal ever for him because they pay $15 a month and they have hundreds of games, and everyone, I mean, it's constantly being played.
Yeah,
that's what it's really good for, and that's great. That's honestly a great thing.
Now, there's actually a most recent announcement, just barely, from PlayStation, because they're trying to compete with the Game Pass. The Game Pass is the big value right now. PlayStation actually is combining with Crunchyroll, and I think another subscription service. So suddenly they're trying to make it so then your PlayStation Plus or PlayStation Now subscription, whatever, is no longer just for a game subscription, but now it's also, we're including a streaming service and a few other options. And I think that is kind of what they're trying to do to compete with everything the Game Pass is offering. Like, how do you feel about them kind of going outside of the gaming realm and adding more things like that?
I think it's kind of needed because it's like for me, like I've got a lot of different subscriptions for different shows and stuff. Like I pay for VRV, and I would buy a subscription to Rooster Teeth so I can watch Ruby, because I love that show and I need to watch it the day it's released. However, like, I don't subscribe to Rooster Teeth because I subscribe to VRV, which is a bundle of that has Crunchyroll, that has VRV. Like, I mean, it has a bunch of different stuff under the VRV category. That makes it a lot more worth it to me than buying just one single subscription. Now, if you continue to do this and start piling more and more stuff onto a subscription, as long as the price is okay or decent, or you're taking the price from something like you're already going to subscribe to one thing, you're taking that price away, like Disney Plus now. You've got Hulu with it. You don't have to pay for Hulu, so you can pay a little bit more for Disney Plus and you'd be happy about it. So as long as it kind of levels out that way, I mean, hell, like, why not? Because, I mean, if I was already paying for Crunchyroll and it's like, you know what, pay $3 more a month and have access to PS Now, all right, that's a fair trade.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder with them kind of switching gears on their servers and whatnot, because this came from a couple different sources. I think it was like the Xbox Era podcast was talking about how PlayStation is planning to counter Xbox Game Pass, and the big thing is that they weren't trying to do. It's not going, we're going to go games against games. They said instead of it being more like Game Pass subscription, it's going to be more like an Apple One subscription, where suddenly you have movies, TV, anime, and gaming being offered. And then they're possibly going to leverage their older titles. If they were to offer, and also all your PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 titles are included in this, that would be a huge game changer for a lot of PlayStation fans who have kind of given up on backwards compatibility, a long time ago.
I'm there. If they offered the entire if they could offer their entire library for those PlayStation 1 and 2 games, I'm there.
Yeah.
I want to do it.
Even if it wasn't the whole thing, because there's thousands of titles, say the top 100 from each one, it would be worth it. It would be worth it, and it would be a small footprint for them to kind of make up, and it would be totally worth it for a lot of people who do miss being able to play retro games. I think that the fear of losing retro just to have the most shiny new game is kind of like a big gap for me that I'm kind of interested in.
See, and personally, I've been kind of thinking about this, especially when we've been talking about the whole subscription idea and all that. I personally would love to see a revamping of um, intellectual property and like copyright situation that way. Like, if you, I would really like to see some sort of like hard and fast rule. Like, you know what? You do not have to offer the backbone, the infrastructure for these games that you have. But as soon as you stop, people are legally, are able to take those games and do what they want with them. Like,
yeah,
you've bought this game, you've offered this game, they've paid you money for it. Once you stop supporting that game, they should be legally able to do what they want with it. Create their own servers, do all that.
There's a difference between buying a movie and copying it a million times and reselling it, and because a movie is a final finished product piece that has nothing to do with any sort of service out above and beyond delivering it, right? But a lot of these games and stuff, if you're selling the service side of it too, and like you're saying, you stop doing the service part of it, then it does leave this loophole of like, well, I paid for a product and a service, but the service is gone, so I don't have the whole thing. So why wouldn't you give me the power to control that part of it?
Yeah, and I mean, if that something like that came about, where it's like, you know what, if you're gonna stop supporting it, that's fine. However, at that point, and not be like, oh yeah, people can just like take this game and sell it off and everything. No, just have it as anyone that bought this game, you have to provide access to the game, and then they can do what they want with it. Like they can create a server and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, it's kind of like with PC modding. If they had cracked down on modding as a whole early on during PC, I feel like it would have been detrimental to the PC community, because now modding is such a huge part of any sort of game that comes out on PC. That's a draw for PC gaming in general, is that you can modify that software how you want and create better visuals, a completely different game, build stuff around it. So I mean, it does make you kind of wonder. Exactly.
And that's important to that community. And if you open that up to more, I mean, I hate to say it, like look at Minecraft right now. Like, vanilla Minecraft has leveled up, and it's because of the modding community. A lot of the stuff that people have created and built and made as mods have been brought into the game itself. Even more so is one of the best things I love about Minecraft is the game types. And you have a lot of different game types that they're supporting on vanilla Minecraft because someone's created it and they bring it in and that you can play it. I love that. That is amazing to me.
I think that breathes new life into games a lot of the time. That is definitely something that it creates a longevity that it may have not been able to keep on its own. And so, yeah, I think you're right that's something that should maybe be opened up. Who knows?
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, this is all like very law, like all this stuff. But one of my big issues with the games, like the whole concept around this is we're paying $60 for a game. Like, we've been paying $60 for a game since the 64. These games have gotten a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit more in depth and a little bit more detailed, and seriously, we're still paying $60. This is not a sustainable model. This is not okay, and things have to change. And I know people don't want to pay more for something. However, if you don't pay for something, it can't be sustained. So, right now we need to make sure to pay better attention to this and support your creators. Anyways, sorry, that's something that's always.
We went on a tangent that had nothing to do with subscriptions, but it was an interesting tangent nonetheless. Okay, so Josh, now that we've kind of gone through everything, and I know that we didn't mention Nintendo Switch Online, but I don't care to. It's not there. It's cheaper, but there's not a whole lot. I appreciated that they put SNES and NES games available on there. I played River City Ransom. once in a blue moon, and that's it. And my wife uses it for Animal Crossing, and that's about it. Like, they didn't do anything with it, and Nintendo still sucks at online. There's your subscription update for me on that one. But let's move on to the future, okay? Let's move on to what we would like to see with Game Pass and everything else, man. What would you like? I know you talked about the pitfalls of subscriptions and whatnot, but what would you hope to see moving forward with subscriptions?
What I would really like to see is I would like to see kind of a gathering of subscriptions. Like, one of my biggest problems is I want to watch one show over here, so I have to subscribe to that, and then another show over there, so I have to subscribe to, I've got to subscribe to 80 different things to watch what I want to watch. Mm-hmm. And it's becoming that way with games now. Like, if I want to play on my Xbox, I need to subscribe there. If I want to play on my PlayStation, I have to subscribe there. There's always a new subscription. I mean, like, I was starting to look up different subscription services, and you were like, no, let's just keep to this top three.
There's
really.
So many. Yeah. I was just talking about the big three. There's so many now.
Yeah, and it's just like, that's very, very true. And it's like, not every developer needs their own subscription service. And I hate that it's starting to go that way, because there's a lot of, developers that they may have a hit or two, but they are not subscription worthy. And those are the kind of things that I would like to see come together and just be like, hey, like, this kind of maybe even do it in a way where it's like, okay, you subscribe to this developer and you can play it anywhere. Like, or you subscribe to the Xbox and, you have all these games that come out on the Xbox. Like, just start pulling all this stuff in rather than trying to, everyone has to have a subscription to everything to play.
Sure. No, and that totally makes sense. I mean, I think that's something that would be interesting to see, because even if you look at like TV subscriptions or streaming subscriptions, the original idea that made Netflix and all these other ones so great was that you were cutting the cord. You were getting rid of packages that cable made, where cable was like, oh, if you want a CBS channel and a sports channel and this channel and that channel, and they added all these ones and they added it with a bunch of filler that you didn't care about.
Yep.
And then you paid a monthly. And now you're like, oh, if I want to watch everything, I need Peacock and Hulu and Prime and Netflix and all. And suddenly you're doing the same damn thing.
Yep.
And so it sucks. And it's because they found we had a nice, at some point in time in the last 6-7 years, there was a perfect piece where cable was dying and we all were paying for only 2 services and everyone was stoked. But now,
and you can get everything you wanted that way.
Yeah, but now everything, there's CBS Online All Access,
Paramount
there's Peacock,
Plus.
There's HBO Max, there's all this, and it's just the new form. It just came back stronger and more obnoxious. It's just the worst.
And really, and it's just like, that is not consumer friendly. That is not consumer friendly, and I'm just kind of fucking done with it, honestly.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
The whole TV regards, it's like, you know what, I'm gonna watch YouTube. I'll watch a few ads on YouTube because I just don't want to fucking deal with all this shit. Like, I don't want to have to try to find everything everywhere. There's a lot of shows that I want to watch, but it's just like, I'm not gonna go to the trouble to buy a whole new subscription to whatever. Like, it's just not worth it to me anymore. And that's kind of what it is with gaming right now.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at. Like, Steam, my Steam library, it's there. It's, most of it's shit, but it's like, it has the most games consistently that I want to play. And 9 times out of 10, I can get them for a really great price. So I'm like, screw it.
Yeah, man. It's hard. It's hard because I want this to work out. Like, my hopes for the future is that Game Pass continues to evolve and introduces better release options and sharing options, and PlayStation Now creates a Game Pass Ultimate like thing that has included interesting things. But also, every single time I have hope for those things, I also think about what I'm giving up. Like, what am I going to give up to get these cool features or to have them expand this? Because there's a lot of game titles that I still play that are ages old, years, decades sometimes. And as soon as those become less and less available, like my go-tos, it's going to be like, yeah, I have the brand new game, but I wanted to play Gears of War from Xbox 360. I didn't want this and that and this and that. You know, like those kind of things where I want to play this old school game from 360, and that's just gone. I don't have the hard copy. It's just disappeared, and that sucks. You know?
Yeah.
That's the stuff that I'm like worried about.
Yeah, and that's what it's gonna be. However, there is a point where, because I mean, we've got games from the 80s on Nintendo Switch Online, so like, I don't know. This is a really weird situation we're in right now with all these subscriptions coming up. I mean, if TV is kind of the base of what we're gonna see for gaming, which I kind of think it is, it's gonna get so messy that I think a lot of people are gonna pull back, that are gonna be like, you know what, this is not how it's gonna work for me. This is not how I want it. And then, you know, remove themselves in a way. And hopefully, like, I don't know, some major things have got to change, but I think we're going to start seeing that in the next few years.
And also, there's always that age-old, if this keeps on going, then Smuggler's Cove will always be something that people will do as soon as they're fed up with what's going on. There's always going to be the Sea Outlanders landfall. You know, there's always gonna be that thing that if people keep on messing with stuff and they don't like it, we run a gaming group and we hear every once in a while Smuggler's Cove. We're like, yeah, well,
nature finds a way. Really, it kind of comes down to that. Like, again, like with the tools that are coming out though, it's going to, like, a lot of people are moving past this. A lot of people are like, wow, this game sucks, or it's so buggy, it's not worth it. You know what? I'm going to make my own. I'm going to make a contender to this. And they're doing it. And, you know, it may not be as polished in some ways, but it's also better and more stable in others. So it's like, you know, like I've been talking with my brother-in-law. He's been playing a lot of Phasmophobia. And that game is only getting better. And it's one guy working on it, and it's the concept of the game. It's not necessarily, but I mean, like, you have that kind of stuff. That doesn't need a subscription. And so, if the big players, Xbox, PC, or PlayStation, and Nintendo, they all go, you know what? You need a subscription to play on us. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be like, we're done. We're good. Thanks anyways.
Yeah, like, that is a good point.
It's got to be really fucking good. And then you might start seeing stuff like how a lot of people do, like Mindy and I were doing it for a while, is, you know what? There's one show I want to watch on Netflix, or there's like 4 shows we want to watch on Netflix. We're going to get it for a month. We're going to binge 4 shows, and then we're going to let it go for a year or 2.
Yeah.
And if that's how you have to do it, cool. Like, maybe they'll get the point at that point.
I'm to that point, man, where we'll have to see what we do, because we might nix some. And I mean, the only reason why we have the ones we have is because they're included with other stuff that we're doing. So we're like, well, maybe we'll get rid of some of the ones that aren't included.
Yeah, and that's really, like, that's the only reason why we have Hulu still, is we don't pay for it. We buy Disney Plus. So
yeah,
like, that's the only reason why it's still available to us. So I just want to see, like, things need to either become a lot more bundled and a lot more grouped together, or I can see a breakdown of the subscription nonsense.
Yeah. Okay. I think this is a good place to end it, just because you and me could debate back and forth about all these other things that kind of fall into this umbrella. Whether it's
debate in quote marks, I would also call complain and bitch about, but you know.
Yeah, most of the time, because we aren't debating, we agree.
That's true. We're just complaining the same way.
That's true. Anyway, so I'll just leave it at that. That is our episode. We hope you guys had fun. All of our information is at the end stinger, and if you have any questions, you can email us at geekreloading@gmail.com. And yeah, we'll talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.
Geek Reloading Podcast with Adam and Josh. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Have a question? Email us at geekreloading@gmail.com. Theme song titled Rocket by Kevin MacLeod. You can rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on your preferred podcast service.